Yeah, so maybe check your setting, make sure you're sending that mic or whatever that's running into.
Let's do that because it's a nice Yeti mic. Let me see.
Yeah, Yeti should be nice and tight and clean. Yeah, you're definitely, was that your Chewbacca?
Yeah. There you go. That's better.
We got to do our Chewbacca. This will make it to the beginning of the show. Do your Chewbacca.
That's good.
Meet the Pressers with Matt Mallory and Klint Macro. Brought to you by Public Safety and Education and the Trigger Pressers Union. And now, your hosts.
This episode is brought to you by Mountain Man Medical. The right medical training and gear should be accessible to every American. Mantis. Mantis X helps shooters suck less. Meet the Pressers is sponsored by Next Level Training, Sabre Red, Cutting Edge Bullets, the USCCA, ASP, Common Sense Self-Defense, and T1 Ammunition. Meet the Pressers is also generously supported by other fine companies, ranges, and our Patreon members. Thank you.
Hello, this is Meet the Pressers with Matt Mallory, me, and my co-host, Klint Macro. And we've got a very special guest that Klint's going to introduce, but in just a second, because I want to tell you about the show. We talk about political activism more than other shows. We do product reviews here and there. We talk about shooting, gun safety, nomenclature, all that fun stuff that revolves around the shooting industry. And without further ado, Klint, take it away.
Today's special guest is someone that's the founder of Hold My Guns. On our show, we talk about, guns, training, gear, gadgets, all that stuff. But this is a very serious issue that when people are in low times, rather than, have legislation that would take away someone's constitutional rights, Sarah Albrecht organization called Hold My Guns tries to give people a way to mitigate risk while still maintaining our constitutional rights. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on.
So what's the genesis? How did your organization come about?
Hold My Guns was something that I formed when we lost an 18-year-old family friend to suicide by firearm. And I am a range safety officer. And when my friends and family came to me and they said, Sarah, this is kind of your space. What should we do here? How can we help gun owners who are going through a time of crisis, or maybe a family member is in crisis? And I camped out there. Was very sad for a while. My children were friends of hers, and really thought about it. And so what I decided was a need was to create offsite storage, but in a way that was very accessible to gun owners. And I started looking into offering storage through FFLs and through my friend Genevieve Jones, who runs the Gun Collective, she became my co-founder. She introduced me to Joshua Prince, who's a wonderful firearms attorney here in Pennsylvania. And we had a brainstorming session, and he helped me design this program that the FFLs can utilize so that their customers can store firearms offsite. And it's not just for a time of crisis and addressing mental health issues, but also if an individual is going to be away from home for a while, like if they're going to be deployed, or maybe they're going to be on a long-term business trip or on vacation or that sort of thing, or even just if the grandkids are coming in and it's not normally a kid-safe house, and rather than having a firearm in the drawer or something, they might want to store it off-site while their toddler's running around, so running amok. So those are the thoughts behind Hold My Guns and why we started it. And like you mentioned, Klint, that it is also a way to practice self-governance, which undermines the legislative options. So that we're excited about that as well.
Yeah, I was very interested to see, I hadn't thought about, well, let's store your guns if you're being deployed, or if you have family over and you need to move the guns somewhere else. That wasn't really something I thought about, but I do know of friends and colleagues of mine that, perhaps had class 3 or some things like that, where if they weren't in the house, they were actually committing a crime by leaving their wife alone at home with those guns. And I think this would be a way that they could still stay compliant with any laws as far as that Class 3 stuff is concerned, for sure.
Yes.
Not something I had thought about.
That's definitely a concern. And my friend Rebecca Schmoy, she is with the DC Project. She also mentioned that this is a great option for folks who help with foster care. Sometimes that there are high risk situations where the foster parents they cannot have any firearms in the home if there's a high risk child. And so in cases like that, if there's an immediate urgent need to place a child who's in danger, the foster parent could find a Hold My Guns location and store their firearm offsite while they give emergency housing to a child who's at risk.
Yeah, that's a good point. We're foster parents and adoptive parents,
Wow.
and we've had 10 or 12 kids through the house in the past 7 years, and that's some of them. Yeah, there's that concern there, and
Right.
this topic hits home for me. My grandfather, which I didn't know, but my father's father committed suicide when my dad was 11. So it
Wow.
runs in the family all the way back to my childhood, or at least my dad's childhood, I should say. And then and we've had friends over the years that have had issues and things have happened too. So it's definitely good that organizations like yours are out there and thinking of ways to still keep and preserve Second Amendment rights, but still also keep the people able to get help and utilize services like this.
Yes, and I'm so sorry to hear of your loss. And the more I get into this, I hear stories every day from folks who have lost people that they love, or folks who have tried to take their own lives and have failed attempt, and they have healed. And so one thing that is really important to recognize, that it just really resonates, is that we often think about folks who are struggling with mental health issues as despondent teenagers staring out a window and, playing music and everything's really sad. But that's really not the case. A lot of very seemingly healthy adults just have the right perfect storm combination of terrible things happening in their life. Maybe they have lost their job. Maybe they're not acclimating after military service. Maybe they have had a death in the family, or maybe they've had a terminal diagnosis. So there are just so many different factors that folks they want to just relieve themselves from that pain. And it's not, there's a lot of stigma with it, unfortunately. And so that's the other motivating factor here is, especially amongst gun owners, we're always afraid that, if we talk about the fact that we have firearms, that they could be taken away, and worse than those firearms taken away, that our rights could be taken away as well. And, you can get back a firearm, but man, or not, you can always purchase another firearm, I should say, but man, it's really difficult to get your rights back once they've been taken away. It's thousands of dollars of court costs and such. So that's really our hope, is that we can empower people to get help when they need it and do it proactively so that private situations don't become public ones.
Well, we've been hit pretty hard here in Pennsylvania with the house arrest orders and the government overreach during the COVID epidemic.
Yes.
And have you seen an uptick in people seeking out your organization through this whole COVID lockdown situation? So many people have lost their jobs or lost their income, have been shut down by the government, forced on welfare, that kind of thing. Not to mention just the stress of the potential of getting a disease that is, seemingly this horrible thing. So there's a lot of negativity floating around. Have people reached out to you since COVID? Have you seen an uptick?
They have reached out, and right now we're still in a launch phase. So it's very frustrating because we don't have locations that have been green lighted yet. They're in the works. And so what I've had to do is I find out where they're calling from, and I ask around and call different gun shops, locker service, things like that. And even pawn shops. And there was a gentleman who called, and I talked to him for quite a while. And he just said, I am really not having a good day. And he ended up selling his firearms at a pawn shop, but he said it was the best decision. And after talking to you, I realized I can always buy my 3 rifles back, but I cannot get my rights back. And I also don't want to hurt someone. So if it were to become an involuntary commitment type situation. So, we have received an uptick of calls, and we're doing our best to connect people with resources, even when we don't have a resource in that area yet, but it is our heart to help people.
What is the vetting process to get basically affiliated with an FFL? How's that work?
So the way that it works is again, we worked with Joshua Prince, and he has written a wonderful storage partner agreement. And there are things in there that are requirements of the gun shop. Of course, they have to be an FFL. It can't be a curio type FFL. It has to be one that, you can accept a variety of firearms and do a transfer. And they also have to have storage. That's a big concern is, we don't want them just storing a firearm in a drawer. So we talk about their storage and get information about their shop. We do a little bit of investigating to see what their customers' reviews like, that sort of a thing, and talk to them for a while on the phone. And we also have them filling out a survey to learn about their community resources and how they're connected with different, like a referral network in their neighborhood, and help them get started with that. It's all part of the process. They also have to have general liability insurance. That's something that is required as a rider on our insurance, which, by the way, was quite a milestone. I really celebrate that Hold My Guns is insured, which is wonderful. And trying to convince underwriters of what we're doing when no one else is doing it was quite a feat.
Yeah.
But we were working with an insurance agent who helps to insure FFL. So that was very helpful because he was able to describe what the process looks like. The other thing is that we utilize a consignment return transaction. So they have to, kind of be familiar with that a little bit, but we can walk them through. It's a basic gun shop type transaction that it's not reinventing the wheel, which means, whenever you run into little issues that come up with the business of running a gun shop, that there are already processes in place. Like, for example, what do you do if your customer dies while you're holding on to their firearm? So same kind of thing. You're not reinventing the wheel. Same kind of process that you would utilize for a gun shop. If someone had a firearm that they were ready to pick up, that the family would come in, an executor of the estate, and they would have a death certificate, and they'd be able, the family, as long as the person picking it up wasn't prohibited and they were allowed to pick up that firearm, then they could follow that process. So it's just really cool, and I'm excited because it is something that I hope will become ubiquitous with doing business in a gun shop, to offer storage for your customers.
That's awesome. I'm a Type 7 FFL here in upstate New York, so I'm actually on the website looking at the process now. So,
Matt, I would love to have you as a storage partner. Something that is really important too is that the owner of the FFL has a heart for helping people. We really want to treat people with dignity and respect. And the other thing is, we were talking a moment ago about it's not only suicide prevention. It's not the only reason why we store firearms. And so it's very important to us that the owner of the FFL, when they're helping their customers here, are not making an assumption that the person is in crisis. Mm-hmm. That is that person's business. We're not psychiatrists behind the counter. Yep. And so for all we know, they're going to go on vacation for a while and don't want someone to have access to firearms while they're away. And so we always want to treat people with dignity and respect. And that's a big part of that interview process, is asking questions like that. But Matt, I know that you would be someone that would be very respectful and kind to customers, regardless of why they're coming in.
I appreciate that.
Do you have partners in all 50 states yet?
Not yet. We have, I want to say 5 or 6 that are very close to being greenlit. We have permission to mention that Brannon LeBouef at Nolatac in New Orleans area is in the works there.
He's good people.
Yeah, he really is. And also as a veteran and someone who already is huge in helping veterans in his community, I know that he's going to be a great resource. This is really about trust. The whole reason why people are concerned about getting help in the first place is because what will happen to my rights, what will happen to my firearms. And so to have established trust with someone like Brannon is really key for customers, that they know that their rights and their privacy will be protected. And again, Josh did a wonderful job of putting provisions in our contracts to ensure that the customers are protected.
That's awesome. Yeah, Brandon's been a guest on the show. He's a solid guy.
He's got a lot of stuff going on. I think if I followed him around for an afternoon, I'd just get tired watching him.
Yes. Yep. But man, does he have a heart for people, and he really tells it like it is. And the cool thing is that I actually got that connection through the VA there in New Orleans. And someone there said, man, we heard about your service and we would love to work with a gun shop here in our area. And I said, hey, I'm not from that area. Who can you recommend? And I didn't realize how close they were to him. And they actually helped set up that connection.
Hi, I'm Brannon LeBouef with Nolatac Veterans Training Program and the St. Bernard Indoor Shooting Center. And this is Meet the Pressers.
Meet the Pressers.
My name is Kim Stolfer. I'm president of Firearms Owners Against Crime. I'm out here exercising my Second Amendment rights, as I've done for the last 65 years. The right to bear arms is a civil right, not meant for negotiation, as some politicians would have you believe. So if you believe in the Second Amendment, you believe in individual liberties, please get involved now. Make sure your friends are registered to vote. Because on November 4th, if we don't do what we need to do, we're all going to pay the price.
I mentioned the VA. A cool thing is that I actually am serving on the Governors and Mayors Challenge here in Pennsylvania to reduce suicide amongst veterans and also those in service and their family members. So that was really a cool connection. And we were actually mentioned in the White House's Prevents initiative to prevent suicide. And it's just been a blessing to see how this message is really resonating with people, and that they see it as an option that saves lives and protects rights. So
yeah, it's a much more positive option than Todd Stevens' red flag bill.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And here in Pennsylvania, I've given testimony against a proposed red flag bill at the Senate Judiciary Committees for Behavioral Health and Firearms last year. So
yeah. Were you there in person?
I was. I think, were you there too?
We probably sat 3 seats from one another and didn't know one another at that time.
Yes.
I was not there.
I was able to submit written testimony. I didn't get up and
It was written testimony.
Yeah.
And then from there, I was able to, I was pulled aside afterwards and I'm trying to remember her name, the chairwoman of that committee, Liz or Linda?
Lisa Baker.
Lisa Baker.
Yeah,
and I
Senator
spoke with
Baker.
her afterwards, and she said, I really like what you're doing. And this is, we need community-based efforts. And so from there, through her connection, I was actually on the work group under Governor Wolf's executive order to help reduce accidental shootings. And a lot of folks have asked, and by the way, the outcome of that was in that particular work group, I really was proud of the fact that I was able to hold the line and really to talk people away from initiatives that we were supposed to be proposing to basically bring on legislation. And I was able to talk to them, the other folks on the work group, because our goal was to give recommendations for legislation. And at every turn, I just kept saying, well, that would be an infringement. They were like, well, why? Maybe we should make it mandatory in Pennsylvania to have a class before you can purchase a firearm. And I was like, well, have you ever considered what would happen if you had a woman who was being abused, domestic violence, and she needed to purchase a firearm because she was afraid for her life. And then all of a sudden you're telling that woman, oh, I'm sorry, but you have to take a class, and that class isn't available till next Saturday. And the people in the work group are like, oh my goodness, I never thought about how that would be an infringement, but I see that. So just every single thing, I was able to offer a solution that was in line with the Second Amendment. And a lot of folks are like, wow, Sarah, you're in this space, and are you afraid about talking about these kinds of things? Because what if someone twisted it or used it in the wrong way? And I said, well, what if I didn't? I would not be able to sleep at night knowing that I had an opportunity to speak up and to be a leader in this, on these topics. Because the fact of the matter is, you have groups like, Every Town and Ceasefire and Moms Demand Action, who were heckling me, by the way, while I was giving testimony at the work group hearings. And, they have this beautiful glossy plan that they bring in, and they present it to, places like the city of Philadelphia, the Department of Health. And if you look at their little subgroups, they've infiltrated those groups. And I just keep telling my friends in the Second Amendment community, we need to provide a plan that answers questions like, how do we handle suicide prevention? How do we prevent accidental shootings? And in a way that is in alignment with our rights and protecting them. And I think we can do a better job. And so I'm excited to be part of that conversation too, to actually provide a plan that that works.
We definitely have to have a good talking point to be able to talk to people that maybe don't know, so we can educate them. I think that's really
Yes.
important versus just throwing platitudes at them like, oh, it's not a magazine, it's a clip, you're an idiot, or it's a clip, not a magazine, you're an idiot, kind of thing.
Well, you're all valid points, Matt, but you're absolutely right. And I think that we have a lot of room to grow, and I'm excited to be providing a pathway for those kinds of conversations that, when you are talking to, a politician and they're talking about, well, I'm really concerned. My constituents are concerned about suicide. My constituents are concerned about accidental shooting and theft of firearms. That we're not just simply saying, pry it out of my cold dead hands. We're saying, actually, we have a viable solution. Have you ever heard of Hold My Guns? And we provide voluntary offsite storage. Another cool thing that we're working on is, gun shops have classrooms that are usually utilized for things like, different firearms training and gunshot wound care and things like that, law seminars, that kind of a thing. But we really have an opportunity, if you, like we talked about a moment ago, there are many different reasons why people are experiencing suicidal ideations. And the concern is that how do we get information to them in a way that is respectful of their rights? And so we have an opportunity to utilize gun shops to have workshops on things like, how do you get your finances in order, which is a risk factor for suicide. But you might not want to go to a community workshop that's put on, where there's some political stuff going on. And so if you saw that was at a gun shop and you said, hey, wow, that guy also served in the Marines, and my dad was a Marine, so I always use that. But like that guy also served, and he's an accountant, and he wants to talk about how he got his finances in order. And that's something that I want to hear. So we have an opportunity to talk about some of those risk factors, utilizing those classrooms, and talk about some of these underlying factors without just throwing it in your face to talk about suicide prevention or mental health. Which, those are bigger reasons why people struggle with those things. And the other thing too, is that we have a wonderful opportunity to foster shoulder-to-shoulder relationships and volunteer opportunities as our FFL partners become kind of a community resource, and they're utilized for that. And we're making connections in the communities, like with Brannon, with the VA, that there are volunteer opportunities that the customers in the gun shop can volunteer for. And our hope is to get funding from different industry leaders to say, hey, let's donate $5,000. We're going to go fill up the food bank, and our customers at our gun shop are going to go and help stock the shelves that day. And the other thing that you're doing there, it's not overt, but you're in a very humble and respectful way, you're creating shoulder-to-shoulder relationships. You're minimizing isolation. A lot of folks who are struggling with mental health issues are not even with COVID, but in general, they're struggling with isolation. Maybe they're in retirement age, which is a very high risk demographic. And they feel like, I'm not working right now. I don't have any value. But to be able to go and volunteer with your friends at the gun shop, people that you shoot with at the range, and do good for the community, that is the kind of positive mental health message that we want to send. I am not a gloom and doom person. I love life, and that is really my heart, that I want to communicate this in a way that promotes a liberty lifestyle, and one that is full of optimism and hope and support from the community. I cannot do this without the help of the gun community.
I'm so glad that Josh Prince told me, hey, you need to have Sarah on the show. I saw him down at the Harrisburg rally. So Josh Prince obviously he was involved with the organization of your organization, but he's on the board? Is that correct?
He's not on the board. He is our official legal counsel.
Okay. Yeah.
He's on retainer.
Yes. I have Josh on retainer myself, and so does FOAC, and so does Allegheny County Sportsman's League. Yeah. He is, in my opinion, one of those people that is here right now for a very specific reason. I think God puts people on the planet at certain times throughout history because they are the right person to face any adversity that might be there. And I think Josh Prince is definitely a champion of our Second Amendment and the right guy at the right time.
On October 6th, the USCCA actually did a feature article on Hold My Guns. And so in that, I was talking with some folks there, and they recognized Josh's name, and they looked him up, and they're like, oh, wow, he's on our crisis response team. And so he's the one that, in the Pennsylvania area that if someone has a critical event, that he would be the person to come out in the middle of the night. I was like, I cannot think of a better person that I would want to help me out in an emergency like that, because he has his head on a swivel. He recites, he recites legal codes and cases like it's poetry.
Like Rain Man, yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, you were there at the hearings.
Yeah.
I think my sound has changed a little bit, but but he's also someone that's very compassionate, and so it's just a privilege to work with him, and he understands, and has the way that he writes and the way that he's helped us with our policies is from a kind of like a trauma-informed perspective. So it's just it gives dignity to people. I really appreciate it.
Hi, this is Luke Negron, your congressional nominee for PA 18, Pittsburgh and the South Hills. I will always defend your right to self-defense as is lawfully provided under our nation's great Second Amendment. You are watching Meet the Pressers with Matt Mallory and Klint Macro.
Meet the Pressers.
So tell us or tell our viewers how they can learn more about the organization, or if they're an FFL, if they'd like to get in touch with you to maybe partner up.
Fantastic. So you can find us at holdmyguns.org, our website, and we're also on social media, usually as holdmyguns.org. We're on Instagram and Facebook and Parler and Twitter. And feel free to look on there. There's a contact form, and we are really excited. We need FFLs. In order for this to work, we need to have FFL sign on. Like I said, we're still in a launch phase. COVID really derailed some of that. However, gun shops are starting to come back, and so they're interested in revisiting becoming storage partners. So I'm excited about that, and we really want to help people through that process. Some of the barriers to becoming a storage partner would be like if it's a smaller FFL and they need to have a firearm safe. So ways that people could get involved would be, partnering as an FFL, volunteering to help get the word out. We have a brochure on our website that folks can download the PDF and share it. Financially supporting us, there's a donation button on there, and then helping us to make connections with industry leaders and community resources who would be a good fit to really work with us to help launch this in a way, again, that is just promoting liberty and a community approach to these issues.
Well, I just sent a message through the website, so hopefully I can
Cool.
I can help out with that. That's awesome. That's a good plan all around.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Matt.
And if there's anything that Meet the Pressers can do to help, or Trigger Pressers Union, or FOAC, or Allegheny County Sportsman's League, just let me know.
Thank you, Klint. It's really important. We have a lot of, we've been on NPR twice, and it's really cool because there is a interest, there's a nonpartisan interest in what we're doing, and it's changing the conversation there. But it's really, really important for us to have the support of the 2A community, because that's really where the heart is, and we want to make sure that we're on the same page with everyone there. So anytime the word can get out from our loved ones in the 2A community, we're all about that.
Well, thank you for everything you're doing. It's a wonderful idea and a wonderful organization. We wish you nothing but the best.
Wow. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I had a fun time today.
All right.
My Glock knuckle hurts. My Glock knuckle hurts. My Glock knuckle hurts, Mommy.
I want to get a piece of that pepper.
Woo! Right here, we're.
Oh,
Boy, that's nasty.
That shit really messes with you.
Well, that's nasty. Neither of us got hit with a direct hit.
Just the wind.
We're approximately 10 feet away from a steel target. We just wanted to see the force of what's coming out of the air. And just a little bit of the blowback.
Yep, that's all it took.
Yeah, nasty, nasty stuff. So I definitely think this is a viable option to disrupt someone's evil plan.
Definitely.
Yeah, getting hit with the force that it comes out, plus combined with the effects of the pepper spray, definitely a viable choice if you're uncomfortable using a firearm or if you don't have the legal ability to use a firearm.
Less lethal. Way to go.
So this is Klint
And Matt.
with Meet the Pressers. Make sure you subscribe to our show on YouTube.
Cool. There's lots of sponsors that make this show possible, like Mountain Man Medical.
Check them out and give them your business.
This episode is brought to you by Mountain Man Medical. The right medical training and gear should be accessible to every American. Mantis. Mantis X helps shooters suck less. Meet the Pressers is sponsored by Next Level Training, Sabre Red, Cutting Edge Bullets, the USCCA, ASP, Common Sense Self-Defense, and T1 Ammunition. Meet the Pressers is also generously supported by other fine companies, ranges, and our Patreon members. Thank you.
Thanks for watching or listening to our show.
Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share. Click that little bell thingy so you know when the next episode's uploaded. Support us on Patreon. Come to one of our classes. Host us to come to you and do one of our classes at your location.
And until next time,
Adieu.
Thank you for watching Meet the Pressers.